But I'm going to play Mark Cuban's comments for you, Chris. Mark was with his first hour, and I don't know if you've heard an owner admit to tanking the strategy. Here's Mark Cuban, first hour in the show.
The problem is if you know you're in rebuild, then you tank super early and you lose your games early so that you get eliminated from the playoffs early and get more ping pong balls.
But I don't know if you're going to be that good that you're going to be winning games if you're you're not that good in the first place.
Well, no, but I mean, it's like, look, we all, the Mavs, once we were eliminated from the playoffs, we did everything possible to lose games. And so if we did it up front, if we knew that this was a rebuild season and we just did it up front, then you kind of know what kind of team you have. And if you could get eliminated early and then start building momentum, you can finish your season 30-10 and end up with a boatload of ping pong balls.
How did you tank? How do you
play all your young players?
Okay, that was it. But there is it you send out a memo or you just say
no, because the guys, once the guy walks on the court, they're going to play their heart out. Particularly the young guys because they have something to prove. So Dorian Finney-Smith, Yogi Ferrell, there's nothing you could say or do to them to say don't play hard or try to lose this game. That wouldn't be right, and I don't think any NBA team would ever do that. But when you have Salah Mesri shooting threes,
that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Chris Mannix. Your reaction?
Well, it's refreshing honesty, Dan. And, he's putting voice to something that anybody that covers the NBA knows, that this is exactly how teams tank. And, being honest, I don't really have a problem with that philosophy. If you want to roll out your young players, give them extended minutes, there is an upside to that in addition to losing games. You could also develop them. So what the Mavericks did, I don't really have a problem with. What the Lakers did, I didn't necessarily have that big a problem with. It was what the Phoenix Suns did that I had a big problem with. When you have, young-ish, high-salary players like Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight sitting there on your bench, when your coach is saying that the reason they're not playing is because it's a management decision, that's basically throwing it in the face of the NBA. So, I'm impressed that Cuban would go there. I would imagine that somebody in the NBA office might be reaching out to him at some point. But he's telling the God's honest truth. And even at the end where he says you can't tell young players to tank, he's right. Everyone that goes out there is going to play. You just get to determine who goes out there and does it.
All right, Celtics have a good dilemma here where they're a good team with the number 1 overall pick. Give me the scenarios of what you think Danny Ainge is fielding right now.
Yeah, I was in the drawing room last night, Dan, and their combination came up 3 consecutive times. So the basketball gods were determined to give Boston number 1. Look, I think Danny and the Celtics, I think they're going to take Markelle Fultz. If it was number 2, 3, or 4, I would be more inclined to believe that a trade could be on the horizon. I think they like but don't love Lonzo Ball. I think they like but don't love the combination of Josh Jackson and Jason Tatum. I think there are a lot of people in the organization that love Markelle Fultz, that believe that he is a franchise point guard. And, nobody's untradeable, but it would be almost impossible, I think, at this point, to extract that number 1 pick from Boston just because of how the organization thinks about Fultz.
All right, well, then that brings me to Isaiah Thomas, who, you're scoring 29 a game. You're the real deal here. And if you're going to draft somebody who is a scoring point guard, can you have those two coexist? Do you extend Isaiah Thomas after 2018 and pay him $30, $40 million a year?
Well, the question is this summer, of course, and do you give him that same type of extension that Russell Westbrook received last summer from Oklahoma City? That's what Isaiah wants. He's playing under an incredibly low number for a player of his caliber. But Boston, I don't think Boston wants to give Isaiah Thomas that type of money right now. Boston craves cap flexibility at this moment. They've got a lot of good contracts on this roster, and the guy they want to nab this summer is Gordon Hayward. They want to use that cap flexibility and go out and get Gordon Hayward and potentially package some of their secondary players, guys in that kind of Marcus Smart bunch, to maybe even see if they can get Jimmy Butler out of Chicago. If they give Isaiah Thomas an extension before all these deals are done, before all this happens, they lose their cap flexibility. They can't do all the things that what they want to do. So I think Danny Ainge, I get the sense that they're the most likely scenario here is that they go to Isaiah. They think Isaiah and Markelle Fultz can play together. They don't think that you have to have one without the other. But I think they're going to go to Isaiah and say, look, we want to pay you. We're going to pay you. But you might have to wait until your contract is up at the end of 17-18 to get all the money that you want.
All right, the Lakers, their dilemma, if there is a dilemma, as long as the Celtics don't do anything goofy up top, then Lonzo Ball falls in their lap. Is Lonzo Ball the right player for this team?
Yeah, I think he is. Rob Pelinka was representing the Lakers in the drawing room, and when that number came up at 2, I mean, it looked like the weight of the world just came off his shoulders. I mean, you knew the scenarios, of course, if they fell outside that top 3, not just with this year, but 2019 and getting that pick. I mean, that opens up a whole wealth of options. Now, I think they're locked in on Ball. I mean, they were not tipping their hand at this point, but everything points in that direction. I think that's the right place for Lonzo, too. I mean, he can play alongside with D'Angelo Russell if that's the way they want to go in that lineup. And look, Magic Johnson's presence in L.A., that's going to make the LeVar Ball factor a little bit less of a pressing concern. I mean, LeVar has to respect Magic's authority there. He wasn't, as much as LeVar is kind of this distraction right now, he really wasn't last year for the UCLA team. So I think being in this environment, it's good for Lonzo off the court, and I think that Lakers team is going to be good for them on the court.
But this team getting younger, they need to have a little more seasoning there, it feels like. We keep talking about Randall and Ingram and D'Angelo Russell, Clarkson, They need something else here besides Lonzo Ball at the point.
I agree, but they're not going to get it this summer. They're preserving all their cap space for next year. We all know the score, Dan. We know who's a free agent in 2018. We know Paul George has expressed a desire to play in L.A. We know that Russell Westbrook, who right now can be a free agent in 2018, has ties there. I mean, the Lakers are not going to sacrifice their cap flexibility this summer to bring in veterans that might help them win a few games this year. In fact, what I think is going to happen in the next few months, maybe even into next season, is you're going to see the Lakers make a hard push, maybe even including a young player as an incentive to move one of those big contracts they've got on the roster. I mean, the Timothy Mozgov deal is an albatross already around their neck. They have no use for Luol Deng anymore. I think they're going to be aggressively trying to move those contracts to clear even more flexibility for 2018. I don't see the Lakers going veteran shopping this summer. I think this year is going to be focused on the development of the young guys on the roster, and next year is when they dip their foot in the water.
Thank you, Chris.
You got it, Dan.
That's Chris Mannix, Yahoo's The Vertical, covering the lottery last night.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.